And the game has started. So once again, for everyone joining in today, this is our Bimap AI tournament where we have 20 different AIs in a Swiss-style bracket. And each of the AIs will play their opponent on 2 different maps. The first game is on Arabia, and the second game is on Arena. And the AI with the most wins at the end of the tournament wins. Gladiator's jealous of Scout Civ. So we got 2 AIs playing here. First is Gladiator, which was scripted by Rorik. And the other AI was scripted by Elias, one of the villain personalities. And as you might expect, this AI goes for scouts. I think built into the name there. Yeah, and Gladiator plays as melee on Arabia and seems to go for a battle elephant strategy. So that's kind of unique and fun to watch. And so the big thing here is that we'll want to see if Gladiator can hold on before he gets to Castle Age, or if Scout's aggressiveness will be able to keep Gladiator from getting to the battle elephants that it wants. And so, just looking at the maps, Gladiator's probably going to be on the defensive first. And the gold here might be fairly easy to deny. The forage bushes are in the back, so they're a bit safer, which will be important for those battle elephants. But no mill yet for Gladiator. It has enough wood for the mill, so I'm not sure why Gladiator isn't building it. But we're doing some boar hunting here. And alright, so getting loom to avoid the ILTC, but that's kind of unfortunate. We had some delay with food. I'm glad you missed these 4 different oxes, so that's a bad start for the scouting. I don't know if perhaps the home exploration time was set too low. It seems like the scout kind of left early before all the resources were scouted. Usually the default amount of time of 5 minutes is enough to scout the resources. But it does look like Gladiator's going to be able to find scout here. And the scout is coming idle right here. So he found the villagers, but I'm not sure if Gladiator actually found any buildings to target, which is usually what AIs look for to be able to attack. Meanwhile, Scout's gold is protected, but not as important for Scouts. The forage bushes are forward. And we can take a look at Scout's scouting. It's got a fairly wide area that's roughly circular, so the scouting for Scout is rather regular. Maybe in Feudal Age we'll see a Scout to start to look for the enemy. Gladiator does have his mill now. Maybe it was a case where it required a certain number of villagers before it could be built. But we can see a big resource difference here for Scout. And still missing the 4 water buffalo. Scout's just passing here. Alright, so Scout is reaching Feudal Age right now, so we got the first stable on the way. And Scout is missing the first lumber camp, unfortunately. Has the wood for it, so I'm not sure why it's getting delayed here. But who knows, maybe as long as the scouts get trained along the way, that'll be all that's required. And Gladiator started to research the feudal age. Got the barracks placed all the way out here, kind of in the middle of nowhere. Alright, found these 2 water buffalo finally. But it looks like it brought them to the mill. And so my guess is that the livestock 2-town center strategic number is set at the default, which allows them to be brought to mills if the mill is closer. And still no lumber camp for Scout. And Gladiators in feudal age. So a few houses were unlocked here. Not sure what this scout is doing here. Might be some sort of gathering spot for the scouts. I also wonder if perhaps this is what the game is calculating as position opposite, and the scouts are just being sent to this area for the start of the attack, since Scout is like fairly close to the map center. I could possibly see this as what's mirrored across the map. So let's just double check here. So Scout has found some buildings owned by Gladiator, I think. But it's hard to tell because Capture Age shows you what area on the map an AI is found, but doesn't actually show you the AI's point of view. Let's switch back to the game just temporarily. If we switch to Scout's point of view. So we can see that Scout has found this lumber camp, as well as this market foundation. So scouts seem to be huddling around these forests for some reason. But the scout does have a lumber camp and is sending a whole bunch of villagers to gather wood now. But unfortunately, looks like a lot of them are trying to target these trees on the other side of the lumber camp. And Gladiator has some battle elephants being trained. So it looks like somehow the attacking for Scout has been bugged out. I'm not sure what the issue would be here. Alright, so that attack seemed to send some of the scouts to try and move to another target. But these 3 battle elephants will be enough to take out all of these scouts. Yeah, I think for most AIs, they'll default to using position flank, since that will usually send the... as long as you're wanting your pocket and flank on the same side of the map to cooperate with each other and attack the same opponent, that'll usually give the position that you want. So they'll both attack the same enemy. But I think some other AIs go in a 4v4, they'll go for approach where they, if they decide that the flank is able to if the flank is able to take care of the enemy flank, then they'll have the pocket try to target the enemy pocket instead. Yeah, and try to catch the pocket off guard, hoping that maybe it's not defending itself very well. Might be going for a boom instead and doesn't have enough military to defend. But yeah, scouts just sending in its scouts against these battle elephants and are dying off. Yeah, either way, usually for those who don't know, the positions or the scouting areas is a point that's picked at the very beginning of the game before the enemies are explored. It's just a guess for where the players are placed. And sending the units there is basically a move command. So you usually don't want it to be... I think most people would just use it as a place to scout around for the enemy, to try and like find it earlier than just the auto scout method. But I think it's usually the way to go for trying to order your military around and try to send them toward the enemy. Yeah, so this many elephants next to your 2C, that usually means a GG. And so I think I'll, call it here. I see, yeah, so an average of the center and position mirror. Is that trying to be used as sort of like an area to group up your army? So then once they're gathered enough, they can then like send a group to attack. I could see that possibly being a case. Maybe in this game, they just never could detect that enough soldiers were gathered around into the gather area. So you kind of have to have some fallback in case there's a forest at the gather point. Just taking a look at the game scores here quickly. So I don't think either AI was, or either scripter was terribly pleased with their AI's performance here. It seemed like both had bugs of a various sort. But Gladiators was able to stay on the build plan for the most part. Alright, so for Arena, Gladiator plays either Cumans or Portuguese. I'm actually going to switch back here so we can randomize the civ. Alright, so that Gladiator will be going for Cumans. And Scout, let's see, Scout is going for Hindustanis. And here we go. Yeah, just unfortunate when there's a bug that pops up. There always seem to be things that happen in tournament matches that don't pop up in your testing by yourself. I'm not sure why it seems to happen that way, but it does. Alright, so let's change the player names here. Alright, so we got a chicken arena. And taking a look at Gladiator's base, since he'll probably be on the defensive first if the Scout's army can find a good target this game, which I'm hoping so. The Gladiator does have a bunch of resources for it, unfortunately. So we got the gold and the forage forward, and this lumber camp is also going to be fairly exposed. If Scout was going for range units, maybe crossbows would be able to hit it from here. Certainly siege, but villagers going over here would be able to be attacked by archers. Probably won't be seeing that from Scout, but there won't be any protection from the TC. Alright, so Gladiator found all of his pigs, and Scout is still looking for these two. I think these pigs might... I think these are pigs, yeah. These pigs might find these, but of course they can't claim them. But here's the Scout to come to the rescue and find them. And Scout has a lumber camp here in the corner of the forest. Might be far away from the trees for the most part, but this lumber camp is pretty well defended. And pretty much all of Scout's resources are also behind the TC except for the chickens. Yeah, see what you're saying about the version of Gladiator. Yeah, okay. I am indeed playing with the wrong version. So let's restart the game. Usually before each round I delete the old versions that I catch, but it looks like I didn't do that this time. Alright, let's start the game again. Alright, so not much to talk about at the start of the game. We still have a chicken Arabia, though this time with hares, of course. And looking at Gladiator's base again, the gold and stone are forward, but the berries are in the back. And decent spot for the lumber camp, except for the one tile gap. I think ideally lumber camps are adjacent to the forest and all of the drop sites are one tile away. But I think there's probably room for a disagreement. Some players in certain circumstances might like them adjacent and some might not. But I think almost everyone likes lumber camps to be adjacent to the forest. And I think the reason in there is just that forests only contain 100 wood per tree. And so pretty quickly you're getting further and further away from the lumber camp, so you don't have to worry about like putting your villagers in here to try to minimize walking time, just go back and forth like that. That's perfect, but only for a very short amount of time. And then once these trees are cut down, then the walking distance for the later trees are going to be so much more. Where for something like gold, it's the opposite. You can have villagers put a mining camp right here or right here, one tile away, and then you have a perfect gathering spot. And the gold is only going to be like 3 tiles away at maximum. so you don't have to worry about walking distance as much as you would for a forest that can be pretty far away from the lumber camp eventually. Anyway, Scout might not be defensive very much in this game, but Scout does have gold that's forward as well as the hares, but all the other resources are in the back, including this lumber camp here. Both the previous game and this one, the lumber camp seems to be placed on the corner. It happens to be the spot that's closest to the TC. So, in ways, it kind of looks like the lumber camps that I'll have for my own AI, which places lumber camps with DUC. So that makes me curious if there might be some DUC for the lumber camp. And if only Gladiator was Magyrs, he could kill off that wolf. But that wolf has the first kill of the game. And it's kind of unfortunate Gladiator's building a mill way out here. And another wolf is coming to pick off this villager, so we'll actually have 2 villager kills this game, which really sucks. And since these 2 attacked at the same time, there's potential for even a 3rd one. Okay, so we're sending all these villagers out. And so I think they'll eventually pick off all of the wolves, but this is going to delay Gladiator's feudal age by quite a lot. I think we have this spore here. I think the spore is going to be gathered up before this mill gets constructed. Yeah, so 3 villager losses for Gladiator. And okay, I hope that this mill gets built before these villagers walk back. That's something that I added with my AI, is that if their villages are near... Okay, that's yet another thing that's a disadvantage for Gladiator this game. What I'll do in my AI is, in order to prevent all of this walking, even in a normal standard setup where the mill is right here, is if the villagers reach their carrying capacity and aren't dropping off the resources at the mill, then they'll go and help build the mill and then go drop it off and go back to farm, gathering the resources. So, should have been checking on Scout more frequently. So Scout is in the feudal age and should be able to train the first like real Scout of the game for attacking here. We also have a chicken mill. It looks like these villagers gathered from the chicken or the hare before the mill was built. So we have another case of dropping off further away than they should have. But not a big deal. It was a much bigger deal for Gladiator here. I'm kind of curious. I don't think they'll gather these foxes, since I think the game detects them as gold resources, and so they're a long way away from a drop site. Alright, so Scout has successfully found Gladiator's base and has started attacking. These 2 corner walls seem to be the prime target for these arena games. Alright, sending villagers to attack this point. What does that mean? Alright, so Scout has found the gate, and Gladiator's 30 seconds away from feudal age. We also have this Scout that was out of here, but has... So I didn't catch if this Scout started attacking before feudal age. I think it did, which is why this Scout won first. If Gladiator had waited a couple seconds before feudal age, I think he would have won that fight. Alright, so let's check at the gate. Alright, so we got a spearman from Gladiator, which is a good response. We also have an archer being trained. And bad default AI from that spearman trying to find a different target but failing to kill off the scout that was or this is actually the scout that almost died from Gladiator Scout. But it's like walking around trying to find pathfind to the target and just getting killed off in the process. Aha, so we got a forward siege workshop and archer range from Gladiator. I can't remember if we've seen this in the previous games. I don't remember seeing it from Gladiator, but it's kind of cool to see this forward strategy. Currently, Scout's armies counter what Gladiator's doing, but we might see almost some sort of base trade happening. But first, I think that only would happen if Gladiator actually can get some units on the field that can kill off these scouts. I expect that the scouts will probably attack this ram pretty soon, unless they're like always controlled by DC to go and attack the enemy. Alright, so Gladiator has broken through. And we'll have to see. I'm curious if these rams will actually target the TC. They seem to be going back for some reason. Alright, so this gate is almost knocked down. So these rams are going around this way. I wonder if they're targeting the gate. I'm not sure where they're going. Alright, so the scout is... Okay, the scout is going to attack the rams. I'm sure Elias is relieved. Alright, then all the scouts are going back to defend the town against all of the rams. And the gate was knocked down. This might be the best response just to make sure that Gladiator's forward rush has no chance of doing anything. Alright, so here's the last ram. Or we also got a new ram here. But this ram will die off, and so will this one, I think. So the bonus against buildings coming in handy. Let's see, were those villagers attacked at all? Okay, I think this one is purely exploring on auto scout. This archer range will go down pretty soon, and then we'll see scouts back in Gladiator's base. We're seeing a little bit of what we saw in the previous game with some scouts trying to get to the center of the forest, but not being able to get there. So I think we'll see that these scouts are going to be able to kill off most of these villagers. They've got +1 armor and bloodlines. In the meantime, I'm going to check the game. I just want to see if these scouts have a task, because that's one thing to check for possible bugs and things like that, just to kind of diagnose what's going on. So this scout does seem to have a task, so it seems to be trying to go toward this forest here. So it's probably some sort of repeated DC command to try and go there, or It is one command that has never been canceled. Anyway, let's head back to Capture Age. Yeah, and pretty much all these villagers are killed off, so I'm going to call the game here. So we have a 1-1 split between Gladiator and the Scout. Alright, so another fairly one-sided game in the other direction from the Arabia game.